Hello, my name is Gwen and I am a professional in the marketing field. I have just begun a new job in a high-powered company after completing my MBA. I'm experiencing some feelings of distress over isolation as a result of the first few months on the job. I really want to succeed, but I'm concerned that I won't fit in.
My name is Sherry. I'm a born-again Christian, and I believe that the Bible gives me every tool I need to live a Christian life while I'm here on earth. Lately, though, I've been feeling a little confused because the Bible tells me I need to obey my husband, but sometimes he's mean to me and the kids.
I'm Jose and my wife's name is Aminda. We are from Puerto Rico. I work hard, 6 days a week minimum. After a long day at work, I like to join my friends for a beer at the local bar. It's better than going home to hear my wife complaining all the time. She wants a job, but Puerto Rican women don't work.
Hi, I'm Arminda. I'm a 35-year-old homemaker. I have been a dutiful wife. I have spent my life taking care of my husband, his mother, and our children. I don't want to disrespect Jose, but I need something more in my life.
Hi, my name is Kim Phum. I was born and partly raised in Vietnam, but my family and I came to the United States when I was a young teenager. I am now 22 years old. I'm becoming more American. I'm embarrassed by the Vietnamese ways of my family. The situation is especially difficult because my boyfriend is white. I want to go away with him. My father disapproves of the relationship. What should I do?
These 5 stories illustrate the inseparability of human concerns from culture. Counselors must remember that we and our clients continually carry our cultural group memberships with us. Our race, ethnicity, gender, social class, sexual orientation, spiritual worldview, and our ability or disability affect us continually. This video demonstrates how to do culturally alert counseling, which is therefore all counseling. This is a challenge for all of us, as knowledge of this set of competencies has lagged behind the other 2 multicultural counseling competencies. Those first 2 competencies, namely awareness of one's own attitudes and knowledge of cultural characteristics, are also essential. Simply put, practitioners need to know what to do. Before we begin, we must take one qualification about culturally alert counseling. There is no one method for doing multicultural counseling. It is not in itself a counseling theory as such. Instead, culturally alert counseling consists of intentionally adapting existing methods in order to work with clients as cultural beings. Culturally alert counseling is both a sensibility and a set of skills. A final qualifier before we launch into these demonstrations is that cultural alertness does not preclude attention to the individuals who are before us. Individuals come to us with unique temperaments and personalities. Counselors must constantly shift their attention between the individual and her or his culture. That means that many individual-oriented counseling methods can be utilized in culturally alert counseling. That said, we now turn to the work. We have consistently found 3 themes that pervade culturally alert counseling practice. These themes are accessibility, assessment, and intervention. Each one will be presented and illustrated in turn. Let us begin with accessibility. Counseling can be intimidating for anyone. It can be especially foreign for members of many ethnic and religious groups. It can be threatening to members of non-dominant groups in general, where mistrust of mainstream society must be overcome. Counseling can be discomforting for anyone when it is significantly cross-cultural, as in the case of such counselor-client combinations as woman-man, black-white, middle-class poor, and gay heterosexual. Clients who are from different cultures from the counselors are likely to wonder about the counselor. Can she or he understand me? Does this counselor get me as a woman, as a Christian, as a person of color, as a white person, to name a few examples. There's an old expression that you have to get in the door before you can rearrange the furniture. In that vein, counselors cannot assume that clients can find them, afford them, understand them, or trust them. We must be accessible. There are at least 3 overall ways to be accessible in culturally alert counseling. They are: first, be approachable. Second, adapt your language. And third, show trustworthiness. Regarding place and time, make your location a place that clients can easily reach, but that is also private and anonymous enough. Agencies need to be near public transportation and in neighborhoods. School and college counseling offices need to be in known, central locations. Home visits can show counselor comfort with clients' lives. Another way to make place and time approachable is to make sure that office hours are adapted to working people and parents' schedules. A second dimension for being culturally approachable is atmosphere. Create a welcoming atmosphere. The physical setting should have decor that represents diverse cultural groups, as in this case.
The only thing is I noticed your I Have a Dream speech on the wall. What's that about?
It should not be intimidating and should be physically accessible to persons with disabilities. Frontline staff members need to be hospitable and culturally sensitive. A third element of approachability is monetary cost. Poor and working class persons often doubt the value of paying money for just talking. Therefore, have sliding fee scales and pro bono hours. And accept Medicaid. A final way of being approachable lies in doing outreach. Bring counseling to everyday life. For example, provide psychoeducation for women, men, gay and lesbian persons, and others on related issues to their cultures. Reach out to the Latino, Asian, American Indian, and African American communities. Have your staff itself be diverse. The second major category under culturally alert accessibility is adapt language. Clients struggle to tell their stories in general. When language is a barrier, it can be too frustrating. One way to adapt language is to respond to the client's first language. Note in the coming segment that Tammy is sensitive to Jose's inquiry regarding whether she speaks Spanish. Tammy offers to have a translator if that is important.
Do you speak Spanish? ¿Todo español?
Oh, un poquito, muy poquito, actually. I took several years in high school, but unfortunately, I'm not very proficient. How do you react to this?
No big deal. I guess it's okay. Most of my coworkers do not speak too much Spanish either, so I guess we can work it out.
Okay, well, I do appreciate that. But if any issues arise with me not being able to speak Spanish, then I encourage you to let me know, and we will look for other options, like even perhaps bringing an interpreter if that would make you more comfortable.
That's okay. That's okay.
Okay, excellent.
Another way to adapt language is to make sure that materials in the office reflect the languages prevalent in the community. A second way to adapt language is to make your language culturally inclusive. For one, learn how to say clients' names correctly, as the clients say them. Note here the counselors asking the clients how to pronounce their names.
Can you help me with the pronunciation of your name? I'm not sure if I'm going to get it right. Kim Fung, is that correct?
It's Kim Fung, but you can just call me Kim.
Okay, you go by Kim?
Yes.
Okay, Kim.
I want to make sure that I call you in the way that you prefer, so what would you like for me to call you?
You can call me Jose. That's fine.
Arminda's okay.
Oh, okay. Wow, Arminda.
Another way to make language accessible is to use inclusive language, such as humankind rather than mankind, partner instead of girlfriend or boyfriend, place of worship instead of church, and terms like lesbian or gay rather than homosexual. Use preferred terms for an ethnic group. For example, know the difference between the terms Asian and Oriental. Black and African American, Latino and Hispanic. Notice the counselor here asking the client what terms are preferred for their ethnicity.
Do you say that you're Hispanic or Latino or Puerto Rican?
Well, I don't know about Latino, Hispanic. I know for sure we are Puerto Ricans.
Okay.
A third major dimension of being culturally accessible is demonstrating trustworthiness. This is a major concern, especially in a significantly cross-cultural encounter, where some mistrust might be expected. There are at least 4 ways to show trustworthiness. The first is establishing rapport. That can be done in at least 2 ways. One is to engage in relationship building by self-disclosure, using humor, and sharing safe small talk. Note here that the counselors do relationship building in a number of ways.
Wow, Arminda, that's such a beautiful name. Where did you get that name?
My grandmother was reading a novella, a Spanish novella, and she liked the name and gave it to my mother. Wow. And then when my mother had me, she liked the name, so she gave it to me.
Wow, very nice. Gosh, the origin of my name is not nearly steeped in history like yours. There were these movies in the 50s that were really popular called the Tammy movies. There was like Tammy Goes to Hollywood and Tammy Rides a Camel Across the Desert. I mean, all these crazy movies, and my mom thought they were so funny and nice, and that's where my name comes from.
I have worked with many clients who are doing a similar kind of balancing act as you, trying to walk that very fine line between respecting their culture, enjoying their culture, but also living their own personal desires.
You have?
Yes, I have.
A second major way to establish a trustworthy relationship is to empathically lean in to difference. Make an intentional effort to lean in, metaphorically speaking, to beliefs or customs that you find uncomfortable. It's possible that a counselor might have and also reveal discomfort about certain cultural customs, such as arranged marriage, some religious beliefs or non-religiosity, gay sexual expression, an unfamiliar accent, political differences, social class differences, or discomfort with non-mainstream ethnic customs. Instead, lean in and be empathic. Note in the next 2 segments the counselor's ability to hear perspectives that they themselves do not hold. The first is a difference in religious perspectives, and the other is about women's career roles.
My faith is everything to me. I walk by faith, and I try to live my life per the instructions that God laid out in the Bible for me. And that's why it's very important that He's here in our sessions. Otherwise, I don't feel like I'm doing His will. Are you a Christian?
I am of a different faith background, but I have some familiarity with Christian teachings and with the Bible.
What more do you want? You know, you don't need a job. I make enough for all of us.
Okay, well, Jose, what does it mean to you to have a wife? What is a wife supposed to do?
She's supposed to stay in the house, take care of the family, to take care of the kids. You know, if I'm working all day outside, when I come back, I would like to have a warm meal just to eat, you know. It's been a hard day of work, so that's the least you can do.
Okay.
I don't know what she's complaining about.
Okay. So a good wife is at home, taking care of the home, taking care of the family, and being there for her husband, and any other commitments outside would mean that she was disrespecting you.
A third way of gaining trust is to demonstrate cultural knowledge. Know something about the cultural and social groups with whom you are likely to have contact, and show that knowledge, as the counselors do in the following sessions.
But the Bible says in James 1:19 and 20 that I should be slow to anger, and that if I become angry, it's ungodly behavior. I need to be joyful in the Lord. I hear preachers say that all the time.
I can see the dilemma then. It strikes me that, and I'm no expert, that the Bible helps us to live as God asks us to live, like Jesus did. Would that be accurate?
Yes, but Jesus said to turn the other cheek.
And I recognize that that's an important teaching. I'm also struck by the passages where Jesus expressed his feelings too, like when he was angry in the temple. And I was also impressed with how caring Jesus was toward the children. I wanted to affirm you, Sherry. You do seem to care deeply for your children and to want to protect them.
Yes, I do believe it's my duty to protect my children and raise them in a Christian household and keep them away from this ungodly behavior.
I'm really proud of being in that family line of African American women.
Sounds like Sojourner Truth's "Ain't I a Woman" speech.
Oh yeah, I love that one.
It sounds like something I certainly should read again. It's real important.
I noticed your "I Have a Dream" speech on the wall. What's that about?
That's about something real important to all of us, not just me. It's about to me, it's a leap forward for our nation and our community, and yet the work is not done. It needs to continue. That's my soapbox anyway.
Okay.
I've actually never been to Puerto Rico, but my husband went several years ago with a friend, and he talked about the little frogs that are only in Puerto Rico, the coquí.
The coquí, yeah.
Yes,
That's
and
right.
he brought a little model back for me because I love frogs, and they apparently go coquí, coquí,
Right,
and
right.
sound exactly like their name. That's neat. In your culture, a man is less of a man when the woman works outside of the home. He's seen as unable to support his family.
A final way to gain trust in a cross-cultural encounter is to acknowledge the elephant in the room, as you might call it, by actually broaching cultural difference between the counselor and the client. In the next segments, the counselors each inquire of the clients as to how it is to work with them, especially in the context of ethnic, racial, gender, and religious differences.
How do you feel about talking to me, a white male, here?
Well, I was pretty uncertain at first. This is my first counseling session. But I heard you speak at our opening staff luncheon, and I liked a lot of the things that you said. So I found out how to get in touch with you, so I set up a meeting to talk with you, and so far it's been okay.
Well, I'd like you to please ask me any questions you have about the process we're going on into, and anything about me. Is there anything you want to know about me?
Well, you might have guessed that I'm white, and I want you to know that I will do my best to understand your worldview. But there might be times, because we're from different cultures, that I might not understand something as clearly, and I really would encourage you to clarify things for me. And I hope that you're comfortable with me asking for clarification so that I can best understand your experience and best meet your needs in our work together. How does that sound?
Okay.
It's okay. It's okay with me.
I am of a different faith background, but I have some familiarity with Christian teachings and with the Bible. That's very important that you feel comfortable with this. Does this seem workable for you?
I think so. Pastor Green said you were a godly man.
Now that we have discussed and seen a number of ways to be culturally accessible, we come to the second major category of culturally alert counseling practice, namely, culturally alert assessment. Assessment of a client's needs and situation is ongoing in all counseling. As the counselor asks, what is the story? In culturally alert counseling, the counselor must also ask, what are the cultural dimensions of the story? A culturally alert counselor needs to have a third ear open for the cultural context of what might otherwise be seen as purely individual issues. Specifically, culturally alert assessment can be done in 4 ways at least. One is listening in the session for culture. Another is doing a cultural genogram. A third is doing culturally sensitive diagnosis. A fourth is using tests with cultural awareness. We will demonstrate the first of these 4 topics in this video. Accompanying materials present the other 3. The first method, then, of culturally alert assessment, listening for culture, is also the most basic way of assessing the cultural dimensions of client concerns in the interview. First, a counselor can simply attend to the general impact and importance of culture on the client or on his or her cultural values. Notice in the following sessions how the counselors inquire about the general impact of the client's cultures. In particular, notice Casey asking Kim about the cultural dimensions of her life and its impact. And then Tim asking Sherry what part being a Christian plays in her life. And finally, see Tammy asking Arminda and Jose what the role of wife and husband are from their cultural perspectives.
Can you tell me more about your feelings towards your family?
Well, in my culture, family comes first, and the person herself is second. But it's very confusing because American way is so different, because they might say they love their family, but they still do as they wish anyways.
Okay. So it sounds like you're caught between your Vietnamese culture and the expectations of that culture, and wanting to do what you really would like to do, and your feelings for Justin. Yeah. Kim, can you tell me more too about your family roles and values?
Well, I suppose we care a lot for each other, and there's a saying out there, together we are strong, alone we are weak, and that is so true for my family. We have made it through so many difficult times because we had each other.
Yes. Kim, it sounds like your family bond is very strong and very powerful.
Would you be willing to tell me a little bit about your faith?
Absolutely. My faith is everything to me. I walk by faith, and I try to live my life per the instructions that God laid out in the Bible for me.
Jose, what does it mean to you to have a wife? What is a wife supposed to do? You all have gotten a lot of messages about what's the right way to be and what's the wrong way to be. I wonder, too, how being Puerto Rican has played a part into your ideas about being a wife.
Oh, a huge part. You know, a woman's supposed to stay in the home and take care of the family and do all these things in the house, and not supposed to be working outside the house. If I were to do something different, my mother probably would think I'm crazy. His mother probably think I'm crazy. But I just know that I'm not happy like this.
Well, from where we come from, that's the way things are. You know, since we come here to the United States, she might, I don't know, just maybe have some different ideas, but that's not that's not the way things are where we come from. So I don't get it.
In addition to listening for the general impact of culture, the counselor can also listen for external and internalized oppression. Following are some sample questions that bring up possible oppression issues. What has been your experience as an fill in the blank with ethnicity, race, sexual orientation, woman or man at this institution? Another example of an oppression-related question is, what is it like for you to be one of the few and fill in the blank students in this high school? A third example to a lesbian or gay adolescent is, when you're around the heterosexual students in your classes, how do you feel? What do you do when your relatives make negative remarks about gay people? For example, to a Muslim or a Middle Eastern individual, what is it like to wear your headscarf on campus? Each of these questions must be sensitively and selectively posed based on cues from the client that there might be an issue. Note in the following segments the counselor listening to Gwen's perceptions about being an African American woman in her workplace.
Well, to tell you the truth, it's really more than just lack of colleagueship or guidance. I'm not really sure what it takes to, I'm not sure if I'm going to have what it takes to be successful, because I'm starting with some things that I'm lacking. I was raised in a poor rural area. When I got to college, I was academically unprepared. I just think people see me as inadequate, and when you see me, you see all of us. You see all of our people. So a lot of times I feel like I'm representing everyone. So that brings in the self-doubt a lot of times, and just makes it really frustrating and difficult.
Give me a concrete example. Think of a meeting with colleagues. What happens inside as you're in a meeting? What are you thinking or feeling in a recent encounter, maybe, if you can think of one?
Well, for the most part, I'm quiet in meetings. I have to make sure that whatever I'm going to say is smart enough that it actually makes sense. And then when I do say something, I have to stop and ask myself, was that a smart thing to say?
But you feel the weight of not just being new, but of competing in this culture of business. There's a culture there. And it's largely a culture of white people and white men. And I sense you're taking it one step further, that you think you're the only one who doesn't understand the points being made in a meeting. You're the only one that's confused.
Yeah, well, they seem to all know everything that's going on. Maybe it's pride or something, but I don't want to ask them for help. I don't want them to say, see, people like her weren't qualified to be here in the first place. She should be a self-starter like us. This job is just so vague, and it can get very frustrating.
What do you mean by people like her?
African Americans. This is a white man's world. It's a white man's organization. It's a white man's profession, and everything is run by them. They help each other, and I don't know if they mean to do it, but they help each other, they support each other. But I just need somebody to help me and help me learn the ropes, but there doesn't seem to be anybody there to do that.
Tell me some specifics of what's going on for you.
Well, first, when I started the job, no one really reached out to me and to show me the ropes, but no one did that. And so I just kind of paid attention, and I noticed that that was pretty much how they treated everybody that was new. But then I noticed that they would socialize in the hallways, they would do projects together, they would go to lunch together, talk about sports, but they're all men, so that doesn't matter. But then I would feel as if I was by myself, so I would go in my office.
The third and final major theme in culturally alert practice is an obvious one, namely practicing culturally alert intervention. Here we come to the heart of the work. In our review of the literature, we have found at least 5 overall ways to intervene in a culturally alert way. These 5 ways overlap, of course. They are: addressing internalized oppression, adapting common counseling interventions to culture, utilizing the narrative approach, engaging in advocacy, and recognizing indigenous healing practices. We will first illustrate how to help clients overcome internalized oppression. First, the counselor can simply help the client search for cultural strengths. Note in the next segments the counselors evoking cultural strengths with clients who hold some negative views of their cultures.
I talk to my mom or my grandmother, but they still the old traditional Vietnamese ways, and it's really hard to talk to them. And sometimes it can be embarrassing. Like, for example, it gets embarrassing, let's say, if we go to the grocery store and they'd be speaking loudly in Vietnamese and people be looking at us, and that gets very embarrassing.
So in some ways you prefer American ways than you do to Vietnamese ways?
Well, I am Vietnamese American, I always will be.
Sure. Kim, can you share with me some of the ways that you're proud of your Vietnamese culture, some of the things that bring you joy, that you like about your upbringing as a Vietnamese person?
Let me see. Well, I'm proud how my people resisted the colonizers over years and still able to keep our culture. I love the Vietnamese food, and when I'm home with my Vietnamese things, but I still like the Western ways better.
Okay. You've made your way in what seemed like a foreign situation before.
Yeah, but now I'm competing with all these white men. I can't be like them.
What's wrong with that?
I guess nothing.
Okay. Then tell me about some of the people who are influences in your life, maybe some sheroes, if to coin a term. Some people who look like you, talk like you, are like you. See if you can think of any.
Well, that part is easy. I come from a long line of strong African American women. They were leaders. Some of them were educated, some of them weren't. But they were all strong women. They could make their own way. They can deal with any situation that will come up. My grandmother, for instance, was a voting rights activist, and she was also very active in the church when the men would let her. My mother was very strong. She was one of the first African Americans to attend one of the universities in the South.
Tell me if you can think of any other African American women whom you can think of that are models or at least people you admire.
Well, I admire Oprah and Whoopi Goldberg for different reasons. Well, mainly for the same reasons, because they both are strong women. No matter where they are themselves. And it's almost as if everyone else has to accept them for who they are. They don't have to change as they go in and out of different environments. So I like them.
Sounds like you, some of those qualities. Tell me some of the strengths you share with these women and some other strengths you have as you see it.
Well, I'm a good speaker when I have confidence. Like I mentioned earlier, the sixth sense, to determine who I can trust and who I can't. That's very important for us. Quick mind, quick thinker, marketing skills. I'm really good at recruiting people to get things done, and very good at organization.
Where do you get those strengths?
I would say directly from my family. My dad is a hard worker. All of my life he worked 2 jobs, and he was still had the time to spend with us. And my mother, she knew the Bible inside and out, and she taught us how to trust in God. So my faith helps me a lot. I can go to God for anything.
Comes right naturally through. So, as we look at your confidence and skills, you're right where you belong, in a job that uses your intelligence, your caring, your verbal skills, your management ability, and it's consistent with the people you come from.
Yes, but that sounds so easy to say, but that's a lot more difficult to believe.
It always is easier to say than to believe. But you've done it before, you've told me.
Yes.
Okay.
I guess that's just an obstacle I'm going to have to overcome.
In the next segment, notice the counselor helping the client experience the strengths of her ethnic culture by guiding the client through this imagery activity.
So there are parts of the culture that you don't like. I hear that. I think what I'd like to ask you to do, Kim, is if you would try something with me. I'd like to ask if you would close your eyes and think about your culture and think about some of the positive images or symbols that your culture represents, has meant to you in the past. Would you try it with me? Just close your eyes.
Okay.
Close your eyes. and see what symbols of your Vietnamese culture come to mind. Tell me what you see.
Let me see. I see two pictures.
Okay.
One is a Buddha, and the other is Ho Chi Minh.
Okay, the Buddha and Ho Chi Minh. Can you keep your eyes closed? And as you picture those images, can you tell me what they represent? Some of the strengths, the positives that these represent for you.
Buddha, he was thoughtful and serene. He didn't make people to be like him. He was just tolerant. Ho Chi Minh, he represented our self-determination.
Okay. You can open your eyes if you'd like. That's so interesting, Kim, because what I hear you saying is that one symbol represents tolerance, something that I think you're asking for from your family, and one represents determination, which I also see in you in wanting to live your own desires. I'm hoping, Kim, that maybe when you're feeling those negative, conflictual feelings towards your culture, that you would be able to pull on those images in your mind and remind yourself of the parts of your Vietnamese culture that have given you such positive strength to pull upon.
I think that might be good, because sometimes I wish I was more white and just raised Christian like everyone else.
Okay. It must be very difficult.
A second way to help clients to overcome internalized oppression is to apply notions from liberation counseling. Liberation counseling is a broad framework that can help a person form a more positive cultural identity. Liberation counseling allows the counselor to match culture-appreciating interventions with the client's current cultural identity stage. The work at two such stages is illustrated here. It should be noted that liberation counseling involves much more than can be shown here. The first two clients are in an acceptant or naive stage, which is characterized by acceptance of oppression and/or cultural self-denigration.
I can see where this would be a struggle for you. Can you tell me a little bit more about these feelings of confusion?
I know that a wife is supposed to be devoted to her husband and obey him in sickness and in health, no matter what. And I guess that's why I'm feeling confused.
Okay, I understand that the Bible speaks of a wife's faithfulness to her husband. So these feelings of confusion you're having, they're about thoughts and feelings you have towards your husband?
Sometimes he doesn't treat us right. Probably shouldn't be saying anything. It's just that Vernon has a temper. And sometimes he does these unchristian things. I mean, how am I supposed to be obedient to a man who treats us so badly? He's a good provider, but he just says these hurtful things.
And these hurtful, ungodly things do upset you, and it sounds like you might be concerned for the children, too.
I am. I mean, he calls me lazy and stupid, and he calls the kids spoiled and rotten. And I know I'm supposed to, thank you, I know I'm supposed to be joyful in the Lord, but I just can't be sometimes.
I can see your dilemma. You try to be joyful, but you're feeling confused and perhaps angry.
But the Lord says the anger is his, so I shouldn't feel bad. But I'm just so torn.
I can see where this could be a real struggle for you.
So Arminda, what's your reaction to what Jose has said?
Well, the way things have been, I'm not happy. All I do is take care of the house, take care of the kids, cook, take care of his mom, take care of him. So all I do is just serve him.
Some clients might be already in the cultural identity stage of culturally redefining themselves. In this next segment, Gwen is in the redefinition and reflection stage of cultural identity. Watch the counselor help Gwen reflect on her internalized oppression and redefine positive dimensions of her cultures.
Can you think of someone who is your kind of professional, someone you might be able to meet or know?
Well, Carlene Brown is a vice president.
Yes.
Maybe I can stop in and see her.
Yeah.
And maybe ask her some things about her experiences and what are some things I need to learn with regard to the company.
Okay.
A second overall way to practice culturally alert intervention is to adapt common counseling approaches to culture. While there is much that can be said about such adaptations, for the purposes of this video, 2 such adaptations will be illustrated here. The first recommendation is to use a practical problem-solving approach with members of certain cultural groups, particularly with clients from more hierarchical and communitarian cultures, where practical solutions are valued over psychological insight and emotional expression. Note the solution-focused, relatively directive emphases in the next segments.
Well, Arminda, I'm interested to hear about a time in your past that you felt fulfilled, that you felt purposeful, but at the same time, Jose did not feel like he was being disrespected.
A few years ago, one of our neighbors got sick, and she really needed somebody else to help her in the house. So when I got the kids ready for school and I got things taken care in the house and everything was okay, then I would go to her house and help her with her house and make sure that she took the medication right. And I was just helping her to get through the day and help her take care of the house. And even for just doing that, you know, she paid me a little money, but it wasn't about the money. It was really good. But I never stopped taking care of the house or doing everything that I was supposed to do and still help her. Remember that, Jose?
Yeah, but that wasn't a job. You just, just helping her, being a good neighbor, That wasn't really a job.
Okay. Well, Jose, what good did come out of that? Was Arminda a better person to be around?
I guess that was the only thing. Yeah, it was, she wasn't that picking fights all the time. So I guess that was good.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Well, how about for you, Arminda? What was good about that experience for you?
Oh, it was great. I felt like I was needed, and it was good to do something for someone else. Mm-hmm. But even though I still had to take care of the house, I felt happier. Mm-hmm. It was good.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about what it was like at home with your family and Jose during that period.
He even stayed home one night, I remember, because I would come home and fix dinner, and he's always late. And I remember he came home early, we had dinner, and then we played games with the kids, and it really felt good. It was really good.
Yeah.
Sounded like you had a lot more energy and almost investment in the family when you felt more fulfilled inside. And it sounds like it gave you a sense of purpose without compromising your values and responsibilities. It also sounds like you really appreciated Arminda's energy and that life was better for you, Jose, when she was taking on some additional responsibilities. So what I'm really hearing is that it seems as though Arminda having some responsibilities outside of the house is really less of a concern than her disrespecting your role as a Puerto Rican man.
She just needs to get over it.
What's your reaction to that, Arminda?
Whatever. He says that, but it still doesn't change the way I feel. I just want something more.
So Arminda, I wonder what you could do that would allow you to feel a sense of purpose, but would in no way take away from your responsibilities at home, so that Jose would feel comfortable with the role that you took on?
I don't know. I'm not sure. Maybe I could check around the neighborhood and see if they need someone to volunteer and help someone in the neighborhood.
That sounds like a fabulous idea. That would allow for you to feel that sense of fulfillment without disrespecting Jose's role as breadwinner. Jose, how do you feel about this option?
Let's see what happens.
Okay.
Let's see what happens. I'm not sure,
Okay.
how it's going to work, We'll see. We'll see. I'll give it a try.
Another area for adapting common counseling approaches is the inclusion of family and community in the work, especially with clients from more communitarian cultures. Notice here the counselor's inclusion of the family as a central feature in both of the following cases.
So Kim, I hear that you feel caught between being Vietnamese and being American, because your Vietnamese culture says that your loyalty should be to your family first, and your heart says that you also care for Justin.
Yes. We met in the residence hall 2 years ago.
Okay.
And at first, when I get to college, I would spend my time with the other Asian students I've done in high school. And that made my parents pretty happy, because they hoped I'd meet an Asian boy that way. But Justin was just so funny and so kind. It just naturally that we became attracted to each other. But it's not something that my parents would understand.
So does your family know about your relationship with Justin?
Yes. I told my mom about him last year, and she told my dad. But it's not something that I can discuss with my dad about.
So your dad is not the person that you would go to talk about these types of things. Can you tell me more about your relationship with your father?
My father, he provides for us. He makes all the major family decisions. But he's always working, or he's tired from working.
Okay. So if you don't talk to your father about these types of thoughts or concerns, who do you confide in?
Instead, I talk to my mom and my grandmother.
Okay. What does your father say about Justin?
He said that Justin is not good enough for me, that he doesn't have a good vocation, and that he doesn't understand the Asian way, and that a man must provide for his family, and just journalism is not sufficient.
I think what I'm hearing, Kim, is that your decision, your struggle, is bringing about looking at your different choices. The first choice possibly being that you would stay here while Justin would go away to school. And as I say that, what thoughts or feelings come up for you?
Oh, I couldn't even think of that. Just like losing my right arm. Because that would make my family very happy, though. Because I'll be the loyal and dutiful daughter that they want. And I feel like I must fulfill my obligations to my family.
Okay. If we consider the second choice, and that being that you move with Justin where he goes to school, as I say that, what thoughts and what feelings come up for you?
I think first, I would lose my financial support from my family. And second, they would probably disown me. And that's like losing my left arm, because I am my family and we're together for life. My grandmother is getting old and I need to take care of her. And my father, the hard work that he does, he can't be doing fishing for the rest of his life.
So it sounds like from what you're expressing in your thoughts and feelings that no matter what choice you make as it is, you're going to lose a part of yourself. Would you consider introducing Justin in some small way to your family?
Well, I'm sure they will like him once they meet him, because he's very polite and very respectful. But I just can't imagine doing anything like that because my parents hardly even speak English.
Well, but I hear that Justin is a very appealing person. So I'm wondering if just an introduction in a very gentle, small way between Justin and your family wouldn't be possible.
That's just how scary. I just, you know. But I thought about it though, and I was thinking about telling them that, well, bringing Justin to our Buddhist temple, like probably during like a community dinner, and just tell my parents that he's interested in learning Vietnamese Buddhism, and which is true though. He does want to learn about it.
I think that sounds like a great idea.
The third overall approach to culturally alert counseling intervention is the narrative approach. As applied to culture, narrative counseling can help clients discover unhelpful or problem cultural stories and author more helpful stories to live by. Here is a condensed demonstration of elements of the narrative approach as it might be applied to culture. In real practice, of course, these elements are not so neat nor sequential. First, the counselor helps the client tell the problem cultural story and externalize it. Next, the counselor helps the client discover the problem story's cultural foundation. Then the counselor helps the client to disclose her better judgment. Then the cultural restorying occurs, in which the counselor helps the client to tell a different cultural story and to discover more helpful cultural foundations. Notice the elements of the narrative approach in the following segments of the session with Sherry. Sherry is struggling with her culturally based story of being subservient to her husband despite his abuse of her and her children. The counselor helps her reinterpret her religious messages in a more helpful way.
Well, I'm feeling very confused. I know that Jesus said he's the answer, so I shouldn't feel doubtful or confused. But I am, and that makes me worry that Satan is deceiving me.
Tell me a little bit about this confusion.
Well, I know that a wife is supposed to be devoted to her husband and obey him in sickness and in health no matter what. And I guess that's why I'm confused. But I shouldn't be having these thoughts. I should be joyful in the Lord. But I don't know. But the Bible says I'm not supposed to feel angry. In James 1:19 and 20, it says that I should be slow to anger. And because anger is not godly behavior. But Jesus said we need to turn the other cheek. And yes, I do believe it's my duty to protect my children and raise them in a Christian household and keep them away from this ungodly behavior.
Could it be, Sherry, that part of being a faithful wife or perhaps a faithful husband is to help your spouse be the best Christian they can be and help your family be the best Christian family they can be?
Absolutely. How do I do that?
Well, I'd like to spend time exploring some ways that we might help make that happen as we continue to talk. Does that sound okay with you?
Yes.
Now, I'm no expert on this, but it's my impression that the Bible helps folks to live as God asks, like Jesus did.
Jesus said, turn the other cheek.
And I recognize that that's an important teaching in the Christian faith. I'm also struck by the passages where Jesus expressed his feelings, too, like when he was angry in the temple. Do you recall that?
I remember Pastor Green talking about that.
And I also remember Jesus was very caring towards children. And I wanted to affirm you, Sherry. You do seem to care deeply for your children and to want to protect them.
I do.
We talked about Jesus expressing his feelings. Would you be willing to spend this time talking about those feelings? Would that be okay? I hear your struggle, and perhaps it's similar to Jesus' struggle in the garden before he died. Now, as uncomfortable and scary as these feelings can be, sometimes they can be an invitation, a gift that have us look at what's happening and to examine how we might be able to make things better.
The fourth overall method of doing culturally alert intervention is to engage in advocacy. The work of the counselor includes empowering clients who experience disempowerment of any kind. Through advocacy, counselors seek to remove barriers and obstacles that inhibit clients' access to the things that count in society. Advocacy interventions range from individual empowerment to influencing change on a systemic level. In the next segment, the counselor helps empower Gwen as an African-American woman who is in a white male organizational environment by encouraging her to meet similar women who have successfully negotiated the dominant culture.
Can you think of someone who's your kind of professional?
Yes, there is Carlene Brown. She's a vice president in our organization.
Okay. What might you do to get to know her?
Maybe I can stop by and see her or ask her for an appointment to ask her about her experiences and maybe help me navigate through some of the things that I'm having difficulty with or having difficulty understanding.
Okay. Can you name some specifics that you could ask her in order to get to know her and her experience?
Well, I can ask her what was her first 3 months like on the job. Maybe some of what are some cultural things I need to be aware of that most people take for granted who've been at the company for a while, and maybe share some of my doubts.
And some of your strengths and areas of confidence.
Yes, I guess that too.
Your ideas. And you might reduce your isolation.
Yes, I probably would.
As I hear it, you have two challenges. One is individual, one is cultural. You have unique strengths in both individual and cultural. Individually, your confidence gets challenged by being new in the field and launching your way in an unsupportive environment as you see it at the moment. And that connects with the cultural piece, where culturally it's somewhat isolating for you. But you have ideas of how you can address that. One is very concretely, you could meet with Carlene Brown and you have some questions for her. We can talk more about building alliances with the other colleagues, with those white men. Again, it'd be nice if they would take the step to build the alliances, and let's see if that happens. Maybe you could look around and see who might be approachable in that group, and maybe come back and tell me some likely candidates for that.
Yeah. Oh, my boss.
Okay.
I think I could talk to him. He's very approachable. Okay. He's very busy though, but I guess that's his job, to help new people get acclimated to the organization.
Okay. And in another zone, there's the Black Business Women's Luncheon in this area that meets, and I know you're new to the area, but it's a monthly meeting that you could join and participate in.
Okay.
Beyond individual empowerment, counselors must also act on a systemic level to counter institutional barriers to client success. In this role, counselors must engage in evidence gathering, persuasion, and alliance building to ensure equity. A final culturally alert type of intervention is to help clients use indigenous healing practices. Even if the counselor, her or himself, does not utilize such practices, she or he can know and appreciate the positive practices that clients can use in their culture. This video has been dedicated to making culturally alert counseling accessible to practitioners. Remember, all counseling is, in a sense, multicultural counseling. Whenever two or more people meet, there are two or more cultures meeting, whether they be gender, social class, ethnic culture, to name a few. Bring cultural empathy and knowledge to the inevitably cross-cultural encounter that is counseling.